Is there some broader understanding of how we should think about alien intelligences than like little green men
Yes.
that you can maybe elaborate on and talk about?
Yes. This comes directly out of my research in Catholic history. What I found was that, let's take, for instance, this idea of an angel. Okay, so we all think we know what an angel looks like. Why? Well, we've been told what an angel looks like. We see what an angel looks like. Throughout history, people have painted angels, and they all look pretty much the same. But actually, if you go to the primary sources on, either in Hebrew or in Greek or, in whatever language and in Latin, and you look at experiences that people have talked about, where they've written down their experiences about angels, angels don't at all look like what we think. They don't look like little cherubs with wings. They don't look like tall, strong, anthropomorphic, human looking things. They don't. They look really weird. And sometimes they don't look at all humanoid. They look like strange spinning things, right? With eyes and things like that. They communicate telepathically with us. Okay, so what does that mean for the idea of extraterrestrials, or what we consider to be aliens? Like, I do think that I'm not the first to say this. If we're in contact with non-human intelligence, we're most likely in contact with its technology. Because think about us. Do we send human beings to Mars yet? Some people would say yes, but let's put that aside.
Yeah.
So no, we don't. We use our technology. We send our rovers to Mars. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So if there's an extraterrestrial civilization, are they coming by themselves? Are they coming to see us? Or are they sending their technology? Most likely they either are technology or they are sending their technology.
Yeah, there might be a gray area between what is technology and what the aliens are.
Yeah.
So, but you're saying like basically a robotic probe that would be the equivalent of our human civilization created technology.
Way more advanced than what we could believe to be a probe. All right.
It's kind of funny to think about, like, if whatever sort of extraterrestrial creations have visited Earth, that we're interacting with some like dumb, crappy drone technology.
Yeah, it's true.
And we're like we're like building these like myths and so on from like an experience with some like crappy drone made by some crappy startup somewhere.
That is correct.
When the actual intelligence is like something that much grander. That's the more likely situation. That is correct.
That's what I like to tell people. I'm like, no, it's probably a lot weirder than you think.
Yeah. Oh boy. So, but what forms can it possibly take? So, okay. I really love this idea that I tend to be humble in the face of all that we don't know, and I tend to believe that the form alien life forms would take and the way they would communicate is much more likely to be of a form that we can't even comprehend or perhaps can't even perceive directly. So like, it could be in the space of, we don't understand most of how our mind works. It could be in the space of whatever the heck consciousness is. Like maybe consciousness itself is communication with aliens, or like, I don't know. It could be just our own thoughts is actually the alien life forms communicating. Like, I know all that sounds crazy, but I'm saying like, I'm just trying to come up with the craziest possible thing that doesn't make any sense that could very well be true. And you can't say it's not true because we don't understand basically anything about our mind. So it could be all of those things, everything from hallucinations, all the things that are explored through the different drugs that we've talked about in this podcast in general. Joe Rogan loves to talk about DMT and all those kinds of hallucinogenic drugs. All of it, including love and fear, all those things that could be aliens communicating with us. Memes on the internet, that could be I'm pretty sure humor is alien communication. No, I don't know. But so is there some way that's helpful for you to think about beyond the little green men?
Oh, absolutely. It accords exactly with how I think, actually. So I'll explain. Um, I liked in American Cosmic, I'd attained the status of full professor. So I was like, okay, I can pretty much write this book like I want to do it. And I did. So I used a lot of quotes from cool artists like David Bowie. Okay. So David Bowie opens the book. Okay. And he basically says, and so does Nietzsche, by the way. David Bowie and Nietzsche, boom, two awesome quotes right together. That's how I open
No
my
better
book.
opener.
Yeah.
Do you remember the quotes?
Yeah, of course. So the quote by David Bowie, and that's what I'm going to concentrate on in response to what you just said, which I think is absolutely correct. David Bowie said the internet is an alien life form. Okay. And if you've not seen David Bowie's interview where he says that, I highly recommend it. He's so brilliant. Okay. So David Bowie is actually quite brilliant about the idea of UFOs. He's also brilliant about the idea of technology. Okay. And most people wouldn't think that, but I mean, he's pretty darn smart.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So I started to think about it. And I also, early on in my research, met Jacques Vallée. Okay. So he's a technologist. He has a PhD in information technology from computer science, basically, from Northwestern. And he got that back in the day. You know, when I say back in the day, I'm not talking 1,000 years ago. I'm talking like in the 60s. Okay. So he's
back when computer science wasn't really even a field
yeah, it
that
wasn't
you can
even
get a
thing.
degree in.
Yeah, he has a PhD in it, and he's French. He's from France, but he lives in Silicon Valley, and he worked on ARPANET, which is the proto-internet.
Yeah.
He mapped Mars. He's also an astronomer. I mean, he's just this all-around brilliant guy, right? And he's also interested in UFOs. And most people take those two interests of his as separate interests. And I remember being at a very small conference and listening to him, being in awe, of course, because he's an awe-inspiring person. And then thinking, wait a minute, why do people compartmentalize those two things about him? They're one and the same. Okay. So when we talk about UFOs and UAPs and stuff, we have to talk about digital technology and things like that. Now, if we are going back to if I were to say if I were to believe in, and I, like I said earlier, I was agnostic, bordering on belief, most likely a believer in this extraterrestrial, or not extraterrestrial, let me put it another way, non-human intelligence that's communicating with us. I'm going to tell you how I think they communicate with us. Mm-hmm. And I go back to the Greeks again, okay? And the Greeks had this idea of muses. You know, the muses? Mm-hmm. So there are these things called muses, and we tend to think of them as metaphors, right? But what if they're not? What if they're actually non-human intelligence trying to communicate with us, but we're so stupid we can't understand? So only people with in super amazing capacities, like poetic, creative, intelligent, mathematical, whatever, because they tend to do this symbolically. They tend to communicate with us in symbols form. And so music, symbols, we've got math that are, it's a symbolic language. And so muses are probably a good idea for me of what this would be. Now, would muses have spaceships, or those things that we call physical counterparts to what they are? That's another question altogether. But if, I now, why would I think this? Because